This episode examines a real, unresolved disappearance. It does not accuse individuals or speculate beyond documented facts. All information presented is based on publicly available records. Some explanations arrive quietly. They don't announce themselves as theories or even as possibilities. They arrive as something much more fundamental, a sense of relief, a sudden, welcome silence in the noisy chaos of the unknown. We are pattern-seeking creatures, wired to find order in randomness, to draw lines connecting disparate points until a picture emerges. When faced with a void of information, a question without an answer, an event without a cause, we experience a kind of cognitive dissonance, an unsettling tension. An explanation, any explanation, offers a way out. It provides a framework, a story, a reason. It makes the confusion stop. And in the quiet that follows, we feel a sense of resolution. The story settles, the loose ends are tied, and the discomfort fades. And once it does, we rarely feel the need to pull at the threads. We rarely ask what that first simple story might have replaced, what complexities it smoothed over, what contradictions it erased. The relief is too profound, the certainty too comforting. In the winter of 2013, the world was presented with just such a void, a mystery that began in the heart of downtown Los Angeles, at an address with a long and troubled history, the Cecil Hotel. Opened in the 1920s as a destination for business travelers, the Cecil's grandeur had long since faded. By the 21st century, it was a budget hotel and a single-room occupancy residence, sitting on the edge of one of America's most notorious neighborhoods, Skid Row. Its history was a catalog of the city's darkest chapters, a place linked to untimely deaths and infamous crimes. It was a building that seemed to hold its breath, steeped in a permanent twilight of misfortune. It was into this environment that a 21-year-old student from Vancouver, Canada, checked in on January 26th. Her name was Elisa Lam. Elisa was on a solo trip across the American West Coast, a journey she was chronicling on her public blog. Her posts painted a picture of a young woman who was introspective, curious, and wrestling with the anxieties and hopes familiar to many. She was traveling alone, but she was in constant contact with her family back in British Columbia, checking in with them every single day of her trip. On January 31st, 2013, those daily calls stopped. After several days of silence, her worried parents reported her missing. The Los Angeles Police Department opened an investigation. They searched her hotel room, used police dogs to sweep the building and the surrounding area, but found no trace of her. She had vanished from inside the hotel. For 2 weeks, the case yielded no significant leads. Elisa Lam was simply gone. The void was absolute. Then, on February 13th, in an effort to generate public leads, the LAPD made a crucial decision. They released a piece of evidence to the media. And with that, the disappearance of Elisa Lam became international news. Security footage emerges. An elevator video. Nearly 4 minutes of silent, grainy, time-stamped footage from a camera inside one of the Cecil Hotel's elevators. It's the last known sighting of Elisa Lam. In the video, she steps into the elevator and presses multiple buttons. The doors, however, fail to close. Her behavior appears erratic. She peers out into the hallway, first cautiously, then quickly jumping back inside. She presses herself against the wall, as if hiding from someone just out of frame. The scene is deeply unsettling. She steps out into the corridor again, gesturing with her hands in a strange, almost conversational manner, though no one else is visible. Her movements are fluid, then disjointed. After a few moments, she walks away, and the elevator doors finally, inexplicably, close on an empty car. The footage is hard to interpret. It's a puzzle with missing pieces. Is she playing a game? Is she afraid of someone? Is she experiencing a medical emergency? The video provides no answers, only more questions. It's a silent, ambiguous film that invites us to become its narrator, and interpretation begins immediately. The video goes viral. It's viewed millions of times. It's dissected frame by frame on forums and social media platforms across the globe. An army of amateur detectives, armed with screenshots and speculation, gets to work. The story forms fast. In the vacuum of official information, a narrative takes shape, constructed from the most visible elements: the strange behavior, the hotel's dark past, and what was publicly known about Elisa's personal struggles with mental health, which she had written about on her blog. Mental health, disorientation, a tragic accident. This becomes the dominant theory. It suggests that Elisa, perhaps in a state of psychosis or confusion, ended up on the hotel roof and, for reasons unknown, entered one of the large water tanks where she accidentally drowned. It fits. It explains the footage. Her strange behavior in the elevator is recontextualized as a symptom of a bipolar episode. Her gestures are not a conversation, but a manifestation of a troubled mind. It resolves discomfort. The video is no longer a terrifying glimpse into someone's final moments of fear, but a sad portrait of illness. The ambiguity is gone, replaced by a clinical, if tragic, diagnosis. And because it fits, we accept it. The narrative is simple, plausible, and it neatly contains the unsettling elements of the story within a recognizable framework. It offers an end to the mystery. And for a world captivated by a 4-minute video, that ending provides a powerful sense of closure. Certainty arrives fast. In the immediate aftermath of a disorienting event, the public square is flooded with noise, a cacophony of voices, each vying for attention, each offering a fragment of the story. But amidst this chaos, a specific kind of signal begins to emerge, one that cuts through the static with the clear, resonant tone of authority. It's the voice of the expert, the analyst, the commentator. Seated in the sterile, well-lit environment of a broadcast studio, they are presented as conduits of clarity. Their role is not just to report, but to interpret. And so, the first layer of a dominant narrative is laid. Authority reinforces the explanation. This initial framework is then bolstered by the careful, deliberate language of officialdom. Professionals speak carefully. Their statements are drafted, reviewed, and sanitized of ambiguity. They use a lexicon of precision and procedure, one that implies a mastery over the situation. Words like protocol, jurisdiction, and ongoing investigation are deployed not just as descriptors, but as tools of containment. They create a semantic barrier around the event, defining its edges and limiting the scope of public inquiry. Each press release, each formal statement, acts as another brick in the wall of the official account, making it appear more solid, more impenetrable. Soon, institutions confirm pieces of the narrative. A police department corroborates a timeline. A federal agency releases a preliminary finding. A municipal government affirms a procedural detail. Each confirmation is a small but significant act of consensus building. It doesn't necessarily validate the entire story, but it validates a part of it. And in the public mind, these individual points of agreement begin to coalesce, lending the entire explanation a weight and credibility it has not yet earned. The institutional stamp of approval transforms speculation into something that feels like established fact. This is the engine of narrative momentum. The explanation gains weight, not through proof, but through repetition. The same sound bites, the same key phrases, the same expert faces are cycled endlessly across a 24-hour news ecosystem. It's a powerful form of social proof. When we hear the same story from multiple sources, our critical faculties can begin to quiet down. The sheer volume and velocity of the information create an illusion of consensus. The narrative becomes ubiquitous, a piece of ambient cultural knowledge that seems to exist everywhere at once. And repetition feels like validation. This is a fundamental quirk of human psychology. Our brains are wired for efficiency, and we tend to favor information that is familiar and easy to process. This is known as the fluency heuristic. A message that is heard repeatedly becomes more fluent, requiring less cognitive effort to understand. We mistake this ease of processing for a sign of truth. The narrative no longer feels like a claim to be evaluated, but a fact to be accepted. It has become the default setting. So the question shifts from "is this true?" to "why is this so widely believed?" Here's why this explanation spreads so well. It performs a crucial psychological function in the wake of a traumatic or inexplicable event. It's not just about information, it's about emotional regulation. First, and most importantly, it contains the threat. A coherent narrative, even if incomplete, creates boundaries. It takes a terrifying, amorphous event and places it inside a conceptual box. It gives it a name, a cause, and a conclusion. The story might be tragic, but its structure is reassuring. It implies that the event is understood and therefore manageable. The danger is no longer a formless specter, but a defined entity that can be analyzed and, hopefully, prevented from happening again. It turns unpredictability into diagnosis. The randomness of tragedy is one of its most unsettling aspects. It suggests a world that is not governed by fairness or logic, where terrible things can happen for no reason. The official explanation works directly against this fear. It offers a diagnosis, a causal chain. It says, this happened because of X, which led to Y, which resulted in Z. It transforms chaos into condition. The narrative functions like a medical chart for a societal wound. It identifies the pathology, labels the symptoms, and proposes a course of treatment, whether that's a new policy, a legal proceeding, or a public safety campaign. This reframing is deeply comforting. It moves the event out of the realm of pure chaos and into the realm of a problem to be solved. It imposes order where there was none, and in doing so, it turns fear into familiarity. The unknown is a primary driver of anxiety. By providing a name and a story for what happened, the explanation makes the threat familiar. It may still be a source of sadness or anger, but it is no longer a source of existential dread. We can talk about it, categorize it, and file it away in our mental model of the world. The fear is tamed, the world feels safe again, not because the danger has vanished, but because it has been explained. The narrative restores our sense of an orderly, predictable universe, one where effects have causes and where systems, however flawed, are ultimately in place to protect us. It allows us to collectively exhale, because nothing random happened. This is the core promise of the satisfying explanation. It assures us that the event was not a glitch in the matrix of reality, but an anomaly within an otherwise functioning system. It was an aberration with a reason, a deviation from a norm to which we can now return. The ticking of the clock feels steady once more, but something disappears when comfort arrives. In the rush to restore order and alleviate anxiety, the narrative-building process is not just additive, it is also subtractive. To make the story clean, certain details must be sanded down, certain complexities ignored. The tidiness of the explanation comes at a cost. Contradictions, eyewitness accounts that don't align, physical evidence that points in two directions at once. These are the messy, inconvenient facts that muddy a clean storyline. They introduce doubt, and doubt is the enemy of comfort. So they are often minimized, reinterpreted, or relegated to the footnotes of the story. Unanswered logistics, the how questions. How could a security system with multiple redundancies fail so completely? How could a person be in two places at once according to the timeline? These are the practical gaps in the narrative. They are often brushed aside with phrases like "still under investigation" or simply left unaddressed, in the hope that the momentum of the main story will carry the audience past them. Procedural failures. These are perhaps the most difficult for institutions to acknowledge. The official story may focus on a single point of failure, a bad apple, because it is a simpler and more contained explanation than admitting to a systemic breakdown. Acknowledging widespread procedural failure would suggest the problem is larger, more entrenched, and harder to fix. It would undermine the very sense of institutional competence that the narrative is trying to project. And so, questions that don't fit the explanation are quietly set aside. This isn't necessarily a conspiracy. It's a cognitive process, a form of collective confirmation bias. We seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs and ignore information that challenges them. This filtering happens not maliciously. It's a byproduct of our desire for coherence. A journalist on a deadline, a police spokesperson at a press conference, a viewer at home. Everyone is, to some extent, participating in the construction of a story that makes sense. The loose ends are trimmed away because they disrupt the narrative flow. It happens efficiently. The media ecosystem is designed for speed and simplicity. Complex, nuanced stories are harder to tell, harder to package, and harder for a distracted audience to consume. The path of least resistance is to amplify the simplest, most emotionally resonant version of the story. The inconvenient facts are not deliberately hidden. They are simply outcompeted in the marketplace of attention. This is where Armchair Sleuth pauses. Right here, at the moment the elevator of public consensus has almost reached its floor, when the doors of the case feel like they are about to close. We pause at this threshold between the official story and the lingering questions. Our purpose is not to argue the explanation outright, nor is it to propose an alternative conspiracy. To do so would be to fall into the same trap of seeking a simple, all-encompassing story. The goal is more fundamental. It is to examine it felt complete, to deconstruct the very feeling of satisfaction that a neat narrative provides. We want to understand the mechanics of comfort, to see how the story was built, what materials were used, and just as importantly, what materials were left on the cutting room floor. Because truth and comfort are not the same thing. Comfort seeks closure. It wants the story to end. Truth, on the other hand, requires us to be comfortable with ambiguity, to hold space for the contradictions, and to keep the file open, even when it's easier to close it. And it's in the space between the two, between the comforting story and the complex reality, that a deeper understanding lies. Nothing about the accepted explanation is impossible. Every piece seems to fit, every motive appears plausible, and every conclusion feels earned. It's a narrative constructed with the clean lines of logic, presented with an air of finality. It resolves the chaos, answers the immediate, pressing questions, and provides a framework for understanding an event that otherwise feels senseless. It's a story that makes sense of the unthinkable. That's what makes it so powerful. Its strength isn't derived from an exhaustive, unimpeachable body of evidence. Its power comes from its coherence. It offers a complete picture, even if that picture is painted with broad strokes and assumptions. In the face of profound uncertainty, a coherent story, even a flawed one, can feel more real, more substantial than a collection of disconnected, contradictory facts. It provides a sense of order where none exists. But possibility is not confirmation. Plausibility is not proof. This is the fundamental principle of rigorous inquiry, yet it is often the first casualty in the rush for resolution. An explanation can be logical, it can align with our expectations, it can be endorsed by authorities, and it can still be fundamentally wrong. The map is not the territory. A compelling narrative is not the same as objective truth. The moment we forget this distinction is the moment we risk becoming lost. And once interpretation begins to fill the gaps in evidence, a subtle but profound shift occurs. The investigation stops asking certain questions. The focus narrows. Avenues of inquiry that don't align with the emerging narrative are quietly set aside. It's a process less like a deliberate cover-up and more like a form of cognitive triage. Resources, time, money, manpower are finite. In any complex case, investigators are forced to make choices about which leads to pursue and which to abandon. These questions aren't abandoned because they are forbidden, or because someone has ordered them off limits. There is no smoky room where powerful figures conspire to bury the truth. The reality is far more mundane, and perhaps more insidious. They are abandoned because, in the context of the accepted story, they begin to feel unnecessary. They seem irrelevant. Why spend a week tracking down a witness whose testimony could only complicate a narrative that already works? Why allocate budget to a forensic test that might contradict a conclusion everyone has already accepted? Each decision, in isolation, seems reasonable, pragmatic, and efficient. It's the efficient allocation of limited resources. But cumulatively, these small, rational decisions can build a wall around the truth, a wall made of unasked questions. We are neurologically wired to trust confident voices because they reduce our cognitive load. Thinking is hard work. Sifting through ambiguity, weighing conflicting evidence, and holding multiple possibilities in your mind at once is metabolically expensive. It creates a state of mental discomfort known as cognitive dissonance. A confident voice, whether from a lead investigator, a government official, or a trusted news anchor, offers a shortcut. It presents a prepackaged conclusion, saving us the effort of arriving at one ourselves. These voices decide for us what matters. They establish the frame of the conversation. By emphasizing certain facts and omitting others, they dictate the terms of the debate. They tell us which witnesses are credible, which theories are plausible, and which questions are worth asking. This isn't necessarily malicious. Often it's a byproduct of the institutional need for clarity and consensus. An official press conference can't entertain every fringe theory. A newspaper has limited column inches. The result is a streamlined narrative, stripped of its nuance and complexity, that becomes the default version of events. In essence, these confident voices carry the burden of uncertainty so that we don't have to. They absorb the anxiety of the unknown and reflect back a sense of order and control. They offer us the comfort of closure, the feeling that the world is, once again, a predictable and understandable place. We outsource our own critical thinking, not out of laziness, but out of a deep-seated psychological need for stability. And in the immediate aftermath of a tragedy, that service feels like an act of kindness. When a community is reeling from shock and grief, the last thing people want is more ambiguity. They crave answers. They need a villain to blame, a motive to comprehend, a story to make sense of their loss. A simple, clear, and confident explanation provides a focal point for collective grief and anger. It allows the process of healing to begin. To question that narrative at that moment can feel disruptive, disrespectful, even cruel. It feels like picking at a wound that is just beginning to scab over. This is why the most unsettling possibility in a case like this is not that the official explanation was wrong. A wrong explanation can be corrected. New evidence can emerge, witnesses can recant, and a better theory can replace the old one. The scientific method, and by extension the investigative process, is built on the idea of falsifiability, of proving old ideas wrong to make way for new ones. No, the truly disturbing possibility is that the explanation was simply good enough. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't proven beyond all doubt, but it was sufficient. It satisfied the immediate institutional and emotional needs of the moment. It was a narrative patch, applied quickly to stop the bleeding, that was never replaced with a proper stitch. It worked, and because it worked, it became the truth by default. It was good enough to stop asking, good enough to justify closing the file and reallocating investigators to the next urgent case, good enough for the media to shift its focus to the next breaking story, good enough for the public to feel that justice, in some form, had been served. The inertia of a good enough explanation is immense. To challenge it requires pushing back against the consensus, against the authorities, and against our own desire for a tidy conclusion. It requires reopening a file that everyone else considers closed. It was good enough to move on. For the families, for the community, for the nation. Moving on is a necessary part of grieving. But when we move on based on an incomplete or flawed understanding, what are we leaving behind? We are leaving behind the loose ends, the nagging inconsistencies, the quiet dissenting voices. We are trading the difficult, messy pursuit of truth for the simple comfort of forward motion. The case becomes a historical footnote, its complexities flattened into a single, digestible sentence in a textbook. And ultimately, it was good enough to close the case emotionally, long before it was ever truly closed intellectually. The verdict was rendered in the court of public opinion. The emotional need for resolution was met. Once that happens, the intellectual appetite for further investigation vanishes. Any new evidence that emerges is no longer seen as a vital clue, but as an inconvenient complication. It threatens to undo the emotional closure that was so desperately needed and so gratefully received. Some explanations, we must conclude, don't need to be proven in a court of law or in the lab. They don't need to withstand the rigorous scrutiny of peer review or cross-examination. Their function is not to be factually accurate in every detail. Their function is to be emotionally resonant. They only need to feel right. And in the complex interplay between institutional pressure, media narratives, and our own psychological needs, what feels right can become a force more powerful than truth itself. It becomes the accepted history, not because it was proven, but because it was comforting. And the cost of that comfort is a truth that may remain forever just out of reach. If this episode made you rethink explanations that felt obvious, share it with someone who trusts confident answers.